Chapter 16:21. Arbor raised her small hand, and a winding stream of water spiraled out from between her fingers. Yun Cheong's gaze flickered. Holy water! The stream of water in Arbor's hand suddenly condensed into a ball of water, bobbing up and down on her small palm. Yun Cheong nodded. You haven't even broken through to the spirit realm, but you can. Before he could finish, the stream of water in Arbor's hand suddenly turned into ice and snow. With a slight wave of her hand, the snowflakes were flung into the distance, crashing heavily into the crimson mountain wall. After a few sizzling sounds, a row of tiny holes of the same size was punched into the sturdy mountain wall with unparalleled precision. Yun Cheong's gaze flickered, and then he retracted his expression, turning to look at Arbor. Not bad. You can already condense water into ice, and turn ice into snow. Your basic control of spirit energy is also quite complete. Your current goal is to break through to the spirit realm as soon as possible and stabilize the spirit energy in your body. Yun Cheong stood with his hands behind his back, turning to look at her. In the future, you will follow me to the cloud-piercing cliff to cultivate. I will personally guide you. You want to take me as your disciple? Arbor was startled and asked. Yun Cheong's voice paused slightly, and he asked, Are you willing? Arbor immediately shook her head like a rattledrum. This time, it was Yun Cheong's turn to be stunned. This little fellow didn't know who he was, the famous Sir Lu Yun of the 6 prefectures continent. He wanted to take her as his disciple, but he was rejected. Did he not care about his reputation? Why? Yun Cheong asked unhappily. What a blind child. As expected of that woman's disciple, even her brain circuits were so different from others. I won't take anyone as my master in the future. The little fellow suddenly turned around, using the back of her head to face Yun Cheong, her eyes fixed on the mountain peak that pierced the clouds in the distance. There were a total of 103 peaks in the Lava Mountain range, and the distance between the peaks was quite far. What entered her eyes was a sea of red clouds. For some reason, Yun Cheong felt that this little figure was filled with desolation and loneliness. After a long time, Yun Cheong made an "oh" sound, carelessly reaching out to caress the back of the little fellow's head. Then, do you plan to take the entrance test with them? Arbor turned his head and nodded. What if Wei Wei makes things difficult for you again? Don't tell me you want to leave again, Yun Cheong said indifferently. Arbor blinked. Can I beat him? Who? Wei Wei. It was the middle-aged tutor who kept saying that a young lady from an aristocratic family like her was not welcome. A faint smile flashed through Yun Fiang's eyes. He shook his head and said, Wei Wei is a level 12 great spiritual master. With your strength, you can deal with spiritual masters below level 7. As for Wei Wei, unless you risk your life. Yun Fiang felt that this little fellow in front of him was full of secrets. Her strength could not be judged based on her current realm. Of course, Arbor wouldn't fight to the death with that crazy mentor, even though his tone was very annoying. However, there were hundreds and thousands of people in the Great Thousand Worlds. Arbor knew that he was not a flower. Naturally, he could not make everyone like him. There were those who liked him, and naturally there were those who hated him. At most, he would just ignore him in the future. Oh. Then I'll let him go, Arbor muttered stiffly, turning his little head and walking away. Yun Cheong couldn't help but find it funny, but he didn't stop him from leaving. Only Xiao Mu herself was clear on one thing. This chapter makes up for yesterday's chapter. Chapter 16:22. It seemed like no one who became Arbor's master had a good ending. Murong Sun was like that, and so was Long Chuyun. She better not acknowledge anyone as her master in the future to avoid harming other people. Xiao Mu returned to the group of people who were preparing to take the entrance test. Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian happily ran over and said in unison, Jojo, you're back. Qi Xianxian immediately turned to glare fiercely at Little Fatty. Shoo shoo shoo, who's your Jojo? I'm the one who called you Jojo. Arbor smiled and nodded. I plan to participate in the entrance test with you guys. Okay. We were just fretting. Just now, Instructor Wei said that we should form a 5-person team each. Their entrance test is to go to the depths of Lava Mountain Range to train. Qi Xianxian shrugged. She felt like this academy was a bit of a scam. How were they supposed to break through? Whose school's entrance exam would actually start with a real battle with real swords and spears? Even a large academy like Sunlight Academy's second test was to fight in a simulated environment. And it was in the depths of Lava Mountain Range. Everyone knew that the deeper one went into the mountain range, the more dangers there would be. Hey, little fatty, do you want to join our team? I'm Che Rumen, the team leader. A voluptuous girl around 17 or 18 years old walked up with 3 male team members. She crossed her arms and coldly looked at Arbor and Qi Xianxian. Is little fatty something you can call me? I'm not that close to you. Little fatty immediately retorted. Qi Xianxian turned her face away and giggled. Che Rumen's face stiffened, and she angrily glared at little fatty. Xiao Mu curled her lips and sneered mockingly at Che Rumen. Interesting, he actually dared to poach Arbor in front of her. D*MN fatty. Don't think they're amazing just because they have an ancient fire phoenix. Didn't you hear the rules just now? Instructor Wei Wei said that once we enter Lava Mountain Range, everyone's mystic conscious will be sealed, so we can't summon mystic beasts. Heh fatty. I advise you to listen to Che Rumen and leave your trash team as soon as possible. In any case, you are a level 15 mystic cultivator. Don't tell me you want to stay in this kind of team and be burdened by 2 women with low cultivation? A stocky man beside Che Rumen said in a very disdainful tone. Watch your mouth, okay? The little fatty pointed at the stocky man and coldly shouted, Both of them are my friends. If you dare to bully my friends, you'll have to ask my fist first. You don't know what's good for you. Che Rumen sneered, crossing her arms and looking around. Is there anyone who wants to join our team? I'm a level 15 peak mystic cultivator. Of my 3 teammates, 2 are level 14 and 1 is a level 1 spirit master. Che Rumen's group immediately attracted the attention of many people after detonating their cultivation base. Most of them were people who had just entered Shuntian Prefecture from various lower star domains. Generally, it was already pretty good for their cultivation to reach level 14 Mystic Cultivator at the very most. Now that there was a level 1 Spirit Master in front of them, only a fool would not join their team. Che Rumen's small hand brushed past the stocky man's chest, intentionally or unintentionally, with the intention of teasing him. The latter straightened his back and hooked one arm around Che Rumen's well-developed and delicate body. He looked up at the sky with a self-satisfied smile on his lips. He was that level 1 Spirit Master, Li Qian. Chapter 1623. When the surrounding people heard that Che Rumen's team was so strong, they hastily and enthusiastically signed up to join. In the end, Che Rumen picked and proudly chose a level 14 Mystic Cultivator as her teammate. The people who were still busy forming teams stopped in their tracks and turned to look at Che Rumen's team. They chattered enviously, so strong. Che Rumen's team should be the strongest team among us. When Che Rumen heard this, she felt her face light up. She smiled smugly and crossed her arms as she stood in front of the 3 people. Little fatty, if you regret it, come find me. I can still give you one more chance. If it weren't for the fact that this little fatty was a level 15 great mystic cultivator and was very powerful, she wouldn't have stuck her hot face to that fatty's cold but time and time again. When Che Rumen said this, the level 14 mystic cultivator who just joined her team couldn't help but have an ugly expression. It felt like he was only a substitute. If the little fatty wanted to join, there was an 80% chance that he would still be kicked out of the team by Che Rumen. The middle-aged mentor, Wei Wei, who had been standing at the periphery of the crowd and watching coldly, said coldly, Don't forget the rule I mentioned earlier. A team must have at least one support. Apothecaries, pill alchemists, physicians, speed ability users, and so on are all acceptable. However, let me give you a friendly reminder. I hope that each team will bring at least one pill alchemist or apothecary. You can't imagine the degree of danger in the depths of Lava Mountain Range. Che Rumen's team looked at each other in dismay. Che Rumen turned to look at the newly joined level 14 Mystic Cultivator. Do you know how to support? That person shook his head with a livid expression. Che Rumen shrugged. Then I'm sorry. We need a level 14 Mystic Cultivator who can support. Just someone who knows a bit of simple medical skills will do. Someone who knows a bit of simple medical skills can also act as a support, Che Rumen thought. The middle-aged mentor, Wei Wei, was merely exaggerating to scare people. Which academy wouldn't send a mentor to accompany their students into a dangerous place to train? If there really was extreme danger, the mentor would definitely rush out to save them. Therefore, she felt that it was more reliable to bring along a team of teammates with top-notch attack power. She didn't really need those apothecaries and alchemists. They had already brought some medicine with them. At the critical moment, they could just take the medicine themselves. Why should they bring along a weakling who would get in the way? A man in his 20s walked out of the crowd. He had a wretched face and a protruding mouth. He looked at Che Rumen with a smile. Then, his shifty eyes moved to Abba. He subconsciously licked his lips and said, "I'm a pharmacist." As he spoke, he released an extremely faint medicinal power. Abba's gaze turned and then retracted. That monkey-faced man's gaze made her feel very uncomfortable. She had an impulse to dig out his eyes with her own hands. Che Rumen frowned slightly. She looked down on this sharp-mouthed, monkey-cheeked man's face. He looked really wretched. But for the time being, he didn't have a better choice. He sized him up. "You're only level 13. Yes, Mississippi. I'm a level 13 Mystic Cultivator." "Forget it. You'll do." Che Rumen arrogantly raised her chin and said, "But I'll say the ugly words first. Don't drag our team down at all times. Otherwise, I won't let you off." "Ah, I know, Honorable Miss." That wretched man bent his back and bowed with a smile. Chapter 1624. Just like that, Che Rumen's team was formed. This was the first 5-person adventurer team that was successfully formed. The stocky Li Qian domineeringly wrapped his bare paw around Che Rumen's slender waist and brought her to the periphery of the crowd. He arrogantly looked at the other people who were still forming teams and sneered, "A mob. Fatty, why don't you go and form a team with someone else? You won't be able to form a team with 2 people who don't seem to have any cultivation," Qi Xianxian suggested with a grin. "Not going." Little Fatty shook his head resolutely and said, "We came here as a team. Do I, Fatty, look like someone who doesn't value loyalty? You guys bring me to the summit, and I'll protect you guys so that we can successfully complete the entrance test. Nobody will look down on each other. Furthermore, how low could the cultivation of a person who possessed the ancient phoenix beast be?" He really didn't know if those people had brains. People who could form a contract with a mystic beast had to be at least a level 10 mystic cultivator, alright? Why didn't they have any cultivation? He reckoned that it was just a smoke screen from these 2 little girls. Only then did Qi Xianxian smile from the bottom of her heart. She patted Fatty's shoulder and said, "Not bad, Fatty. I, Qi Xianxian, will befriend you." Fatty chuckled mischievously. Abba, who was standing silently at the side, was expressionless, but his heart inexplicably stirred slightly. "Friend. You guys wait. I think I saw someone familiar." Qi Xianxian suddenly ran out of the crowd after saying that. Like a gust of wind, she swept past everyone at an incomparably fast speed, startling everyone who was busy forming teams. F***CK. How could a woman who didn't seem to have any cultivation be so fast? "Stop right there." Qi Xianxian pounced on a person's back like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. She raised her fist and ruthlessly smashed it down. "Ayo." That person, who was wrapped in a black cloak, hugged his head and scurried away like a rat as he cried out in alarm. F***CK, it's you. Little Fatty also recognized him. With a roar, he quickly jumped over. His speed was more than twice that of Qi Xuanxuan's. He was so fast that he was almost like a nimble ball. He leaped to the side of the man in the black cape in an instant, and his fists rained down on the man's head. "How dare you sell me a fake map and make me walk so far in vain? You brat! Hand over my 10 spirit coins. You've got the wrong person. I don't know you guys at all. What fake map?" The cloaked man shouted in a muffled voice. "Teacher, teacher, save me." Instructor Wei Wei, who was watching from the sidelines, continued to remain silent. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty's fists landed on the black-caped man's body. Hearing this, Qi Xianxian's fist paused. She turned to look at Little Fatty in astonishment. With an incredulous expression on her face, she asked, "Are you serious? You spent 10 spirit coins to buy that lousy map?" Little Fatty's fists continued to land. He turned his head and looked at Qi Xianxian. "Aren't you? How much did you spend?" "I spent 1 spirit coin." Qi Xianxian covered her face. Little Fatty was instantly enraged. His fists rained down on the black-caped man's face as though they were free. "F***ck, you stinky brat, how dare you treat me like this? What's the matter? Do you think I'm easy to fool just because I'm a man?" Auber didn't know why, but he had the urge to laugh. Chapter 1625. Rip, Rip, Rip. Qi Xianxian simply tore off the guy's black cloak. Who knew that the guy was only wearing a pair of nondescript shorts? When she tore off his cloak, his tender skin and 2 white legs were exposed. "Ah, you pervert!" Qi Xianxian held her face and screamed. She kept kicking the man whose cloak had been ripped off. The man in the black cloak lay on the ground with tears streaming down his face. "Please, big sister, who tore off my cloak? Who made me expose my body? How dare you call me a pervert? She's the pervert. Her whole family are perverts. Stop hitting me, stop hitting you too." The man in the black cloak wailed. "I'm not a pervert, I'm your senior brother from year 2. It hurts so much. Stop hitting me. I am Mata, your senior brother from year 2. Little Fatty pulled Qi Xianxian over and looked suspiciously at the man who was lying on the ground with a bump on his head. "You're from year 2? Oh my God, the 2 of you are too ruthless." The senior brother from year 2, whose legs were exposed and whose shorts were tattered by Little Fatty, stood up. Actually, the guy was supposed to be quite handsome, but his face was swollen by Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian, and his original appearance could not be seen. "Teacher, he sold us a fake map." Qi Xianxian shouted angrily at Instructor Wei Wei. "A student from your academy sold us a fake map." "What fake map? How can that map be fake?" Mata shouted, unconvinced. "It's obviously a real map, you just don't know how to read it." Auber walked up quickly and tugged at Qi Xuanxuan's little paw. Qi Xianxian was so angry that she did not notice her actions. She turned her head and shouted at Instructor Wei Wei, "Teacher, aren't you going to do something about it?" Ma Ta was selling the map in Anka City under the Academy's instructions. Wei Wei said calmly, "The fact that you were tricked can only mean one thing. You're too stupid. You." Qi Xianxian was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She turned around and saw Mata, whose face was bruised and swollen, and laughed wretchedly. She was so angry that she kicked him. This time, Mata dodged. He patted his chest and shouted, "Hey little girl, you're so young, but your kicks are so **king vicious. If I get kicked by your bloodline-ending kick, will there still be any happiness left in my life? Let me remind you that once the incense sticks time is up and you fail to form a team, you will be disqualified from the entrance test," Wei Wei said coldly. "What? You're clearly picking on me," Qi Xianxian said angrily. "Everyone will be treated equally." Qi Xianxian was so angry that her cheeks were puffed up. She turned her head and saw Mata smiling wretchedly. She raised her fist and rushed forward. "You join our team. If you don't agree, I'll beat you to death." Everyone was stunned. F***ck, you can team up like this? Little Fatty secretly clenched his fists and praised, "Xian Xian, well done. Pull the map seller into the team, and beat him up if he doesn't like you." "Perfect." Arbor's mouth twitched. She looked helplessly at her two unreliable teammates. Why did she feel that her team would turn into a team of clowns? Don't hit me. Please don't hit me." Chapter 16:26. I'll join. Ah. Mata squatted to the side, holding his head pitifully as he cried out repeatedly. "At least you know what's good for you." Qi Xian put her hands on her hips and shouted angrily. "That works too?" Some students who had yet to form a team angrily turned to look at Wei Wei. "Teacher. He's a second-year senior. This kind of team formation doesn't conform to the rules. If you can also find a second or third-year senior to help you," Wei Wei said coldly. Those people immediately quieted down. What a joke. Where would they find a second or third-year senior? Probably only an idiot like the black-cloaked man would sneak out to watch the show and get caught. However, looking at the black-cloaked man, he couldn't even defeat a girl with no cultivation. His cultivation definitely wasn't that high. No wonder he could only stay in the academy and could only stay in the second grade forever. He still hadn't graduated. The rest of the people hurriedly went around to form teams. Xiao Mu's group of 4 stood together, and their gazes swept past the group of repulsive people on the field. "Looks like you have to find a support." Ma Ta took out a black robe from his inner world and wrapped himself in it. He then pretended to be a dog as he stood next to Xiao Mu and told them with a grin. "No need." Qi Xian snorted coldly. "Our team already has a support." "Oh." Mata was slightly startled. He just smiled and didn't say anything else. "Countdown of 5 minutes." Wei Wei reminded coldly, his face expressionless. Some of the people who had yet to form a team started to panic. They casually asked others if they wanted a support and quickly formed a team. Groups of 5 formed and stood beside Che Rumen one after another. Arbor frowned. At this time, there was basically no time to choose a team. The remaining people hurriedly came forward, wanting to join Arbor's team. "Scram!" Qi Xian shouted coldly. "Didn't you say that you don't welcome us? Why are you trying to rely on us now? Do you have any shame? Where's your shame? Where's your shame?" Arbor smirked and didn't say anything. Hey, little girl, don't let your emotions affect your decisions." There was less than a minute left. If they didn't hurry up and form a team, they would fail. Then, Instructor Wei Wei will make you roll down the mountain. Mata chuckled. "Why don't you give us a demonstration?" Little Fatty turned his head and said, F***CK. What if we can't chat happily? Half a minute left. Have you all formed a team? Wei Wei's cold gaze fell on Arbor's group, and he laughed mockingly. A person can be arrogant, but they can't be too arrogant. You can't even form a basic team of 5. It's obvious that you don't have the ability to work together as a team, much less the ability to rally and organize. If you set your sights too high, your team will ultimately fail. Duanmu Qing, apothecary, join the team. All 5 of you are here. A cold voice traveled through the crowd into the ears of Arbor and the others. Following everyone's gaze, a tall young man slowly walked over. He wore a white shirt, and his black hair was only tied up with a hairband. He looked to be 19 years old, and his facial features were well defined as if they were carved by a knife. A pair of dark eyes emitted an icy chill, as deep as a cold ancient well, without any ripples. Arbor was practically glaring, his gaze locked onto the person who walked over. Chapter 16:27. At that moment, she felt dizzy. There seemed to be some messy and impure images pouring into her mind. In the dark dungeon, a pair of expectant black eyes stared at her through a small window the size of a palm. He murmured, "Chow chow, chow chow, hang in there, don't die. Live, live." Live with me. Brother Ching, it's so painful to live. Brother Ching, I can't hold on anymore. No, you have to hold on, hold on. Chow chow, master has already left me. You can't die. You have to live with me. We can definitely live. Jojo, there will be hope as long as you live. Their gazes met across the air, and their gazes met. At that moment, Duanmu Qing was slightly taken aback. His black eyes revealed some doubt as he stared deeply at Arbor. Arbor vaguely saw a patch of blood stained by red candles. There were several corpses lying on the ground in the bridal chamber. Pairs of horrified eyes stared fixedly at her, full of accusation. It was as if she was the main culprit. Brother Qing, don't worry about me. Hurry up and leave, he's coming. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Arbor only saw a patch of scarlet in front of her eyes. In a daze, she seemed to see a beautiful woman running wildly out of the room. That face, that familiar face. Xiao Mu froze in place in shock, simply unable to believe the hazy scene before her eyes. Impossible, 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 impossible. How could she stand up in her previous life? Wasn't she crippled and paralyzed all this time? When did she stand up? What was going on in the bridal chamber? What was going on in front of her eyes? Impossible, she had already killed Qin Xian. She had already gotten rid of her inner demons. She should have remembered everything from her previous life. It was impossible for her to forget. Impossible. Arbor suddenly turned around and flew towards the mountain peak in the distance. Jojo. Qi Xianxian was stunned. She grabbed Duanmu Qing, who was still in a daze, and shouted at Instructor Wei Wei, "The 5 of us are here. We'll come over later." After saying that, he hurriedly chased in the direction of Arbor. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They really couldn't figure out how these 2 little girls, who seemed to have no cultivation at all, could be so fast. Could it be that they had collectively misjudged him? Instructor Wei Wei didn't make things difficult for them. He only glanced coldly in the direction of Arbor where Qi Xianxian and Qi Xianxian had left. He turned his gaze to the remaining 3 people on the field. You can't even form a 5-man team. It shows how useless you are. It is not suitable for you to continue staying here. I will arrange for someone to send you down the mountain. The 3 unlucky bastards immediately howled, one louder than the other. Why should we go down the mountain? Instructor, this isn't fair. There are only 3 of us in the first place. Where are we supposed to find 5 people? It's those 2 senior brothers who broke the rules. The rules didn't specify that we can't invite senior brothers to join the team. Instructor Wei Wei glanced coldly at the 3 of them. It's you who are too weak. Go down the mountain immediately. What kind of lousy academy is this? What kind of lousy examination rules are this? One of the 3 immediately cursed with hatred in his heart. Who wants to study here? We can enter Star Splendor Academy or Dawn Academy with some spirit coins. They are after all one of the 4 great academies. The 6th watch ended. Chapter 1628. Instructor Wei Wei coldly glanced at the 3 of them. Forgive me for not seeing you off. Wei Wei had seen a lot of this kind of sour grapes mentality. The academy's recruitment policy was different from the so-called 4 great academies. If they thought that the top academies were the same as trash academies like Sun Moon Star Academy, then they should get lost early. Humph. The 3 of them left in a huff, glaring angrily at Wei Wei before leaving. They were disinclined to continue staying in such an unreasonable academy. One of them turned around and sneered at the students who had formed their teams. Don't think that you can enter this trash academy just because you formed a team. Who knows how many people can come out of the depths of the lava mountain range? That's right, your mystic senses have been sealed. You can't summon mystic beasts or move items in your inner worlds. Ha ha ha. I wish you all good luck. With that, the 3 of them slipped down the mountain. They left behind a group of students who had formed their teams but were still fearful. They looked at each other, and the uneasiness in their hearts increased slightly. The words of the people who left were not completely unreasonable. Deep into the heart of the lava mountain range was a dangerous place, but they couldn't summon mystic beasts or move items in their inner worlds. Wouldn't that make it difficult for them to move? Che-Ruman chuckled. It's just a mere lava mountain range. Even if we don't use mystic senses, it won't be a problem for us. Wei Wei said, now, other than them, all the assistants in your team, step forward. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. The monkey-cheeked man in Che-Ruman's team smiled slyly. Why don't they use it? Because Duanmu Qing is a third-year student of the academy. He is a pharmacist. As academy instructors, we are very clear about the efficacy of the medicine. Wei Wei said coldly. The monkey-cheeked man pursed his lips and walked out of the team to release the medicinal efficacy in his body. I clearly released it just now. Wouldn't releasing it again consume the medicinal efficacy? What if we encounter danger and I don't have enough medicinal efficacy? Instructor, this isn't too good. Che-Ruman curled her lips into a disdainful smile. She wouldn't place her hopes on such an unreliable teammate with a monkey-cheeked mouth. She arranged for him to join the team only because his special ability was an indispensable part of the team. Let him heal me? Heh, don't joke around. How could she put her precious life in the hands of an unfamiliar teammate? Your 3 teams are not qualified. All of you are to leave the mountain. What? The members of the 3 teams who were named could not help but turn pale with fright. You call yourselves doctors? Yet, he didn't even know how to bandage a wound. How could he pretend to be a doctor when he was all wrapped up in a mess? Go down the mountain. The group that had been tricked by the 3 people who had pretended to be doctors immediately became noisy. Then let's form a new team. All of you, go down the mountain. Damn it! This is too unfair. Why must we have a useless doctor by our side? Yes. We don't need any assistance to pass the entrance test. These are the rules. Wei Wei coldly glanced at the 3 teams that were protesting. An hour ago, I already made it clear to you. It's you who didn't follow the rules. You deserve to be eliminated. Damn it! Who wants to stay here? The members of the 3 teams flew into a rage out of humiliation. Chapter 1629. Let's go. Looking at the environment of this lousy academy, it won't be good to stay here and eat. That's right, let's go. If this place doesn't want us, there will be a place for us. Humph. Humph. After another group of people left while cursing, the scene fell into silence. I'll give you an hour to pack your luggage. When we officially enter the lava mountain range, I will seal all of your mystic senses. At that time, not only will your mystic beasts be unusable, your inner worlds will also be unusable, Wei Wei said coldly. It's not too late to back out now. After entering the depths of the lava mountain range, whether you live or die will depend on your own efforts. I won't help you. KSK. Che-Ruman looked away in disdain. She didn't believe it. If they encountered that kind of life and death crisis, would the instructors of a top academy look on coldly and not lend a hand? Did they not want the academy's reputation anymore? Even if you encounter a large mystic beast or even a spirit beast, I won't help you. Think about it yourself. If you want to back out, do it now. When Wei Wei's voice fell, the 23 teams on the field, except for Little Fatty and the other 2, let out a burst of curses. Every team member looked at each other nervously and hurriedly discussed a few words in secret. In the end, they clenched their teeth and persevered. After all, they had already come this far, how could they not give it their all? Besides, almost everyone had the same thought as Che-Ruman. They felt that if they encountered an extremely large spirit beast that they really couldn't deal with, the instructors would definitely not stand by and watch. Since no one backs out, then we'll set off in an hour. Wei Wei coldly glanced at Little Fatty, Mata, and Duanmu Qing. Time is of the essence. This was a warning to the three of them. After all, their team was the only one on the field, and two of their teammates had disappeared. Arbor leaped up to a nearby empty mountain peak at lightning speed. With a furious roar, the water spirit in her hand gathered into a long whip and swept across half the mountain peak. In an instant, the scarlet boulder in front of her was smashed into pieces. Impossible. How could she have forgotten something? This was impossible. She clearly remembered everything, Arbor held the water spirit whip and stared blankly at the mountain wall in front of him. It was as if a yellowed ancient scroll painting had appeared on the mountain wall, and the figure on the scroll was constantly flashing. If you want to kill Brother Qing, you'll have to kill me first. You call him Brother Qing? You and I have been together for so long, do you know my name? Arbor knew all too well about the man in front of him, who was wearing a wedding robe and holding a sword. His handsome face was cold and his eyes emitted a dark green light. Wasn't it Qin Xian? The blood in her body almost froze in an instant. Impossible. 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 How could she possibly marry Qin Xian? There was no such thing in his memory. Impossible. I remembered wrongly, I remembered wrongly, I remembered wrongly. He must have remembered wrongly. She squatted down and hugged herself into a ball, trembling. She saw the ancient scroll painting on the mountain wall. Qin Xian, who was wearing a red wedding dress, was thrusting the sword in her hand into a man's body. Arbor held her head and didn't dare to look anymore. She didn't dare to look into those ruthless eyes. She just squatted there and hugged herself into a ball. Chapter 1630. In her daze, she seemed to hear someone talking beside her. My name is Duanmu Qing. I don't remember how old I am anymore. What about you? My name is Arbor. I'm 20 years old. How long have you been locked up here? I don't remember. I was only 19 when I came in. Now, I don't know how many years have passed. It should have been 4 to 5 years. Duanmu Qing let out a long sigh and said, Actually, I've always lived in darkness. After a long time, I don't have to worry about never seeing the light again. Jojo, do you still remember what the starry sky looks like? If I can get out, I must spend 3 days and 3 nights to take a good look at the distant starry sky. Jojo, can you promise me one thing? Don't die before me. It's really too hard to stay in the dark alone. Arbor squatted on the ground. Unknowingly, her face was covered in tears. She felt that she might have remembered. Duanmu Qing. Duanmu Qing. He was one of the 2 pharmacists who were locked up in the dungeon with her and were studied by Fan Qiuhe all day long. It's him, it's him. What was going on? Impossible. She had never seen the 2 pharmacists who were equally miserable in her memory. Impossible, impossible. She didn't know the pharmacist called Duanmu Qing at all. She didn't know. When she was carried out of the dungeon by Qin Xian, she hadn't heard any movements from the 2 pharmacists for a long, long time. The pharmacists should have died long ago. Why did they appear by her side afterward? So scary, so chaotic. Why was she standing in the same wedding room as Qin Xian? Impossible, impossible, impossible. She couldn't have agreed to marry Qin Xian. Her mind was in a mess. It was blurry and even filled with horror and fear. Master! Little Trey Ant jumped out of Paradise Planet in a panic. Little Soil and Little Water also jumped out with it. The 3 little ones rubbed against her legs and looked at her anxiously. Master, what's wrong? Jojo. Qi Xian, who had chased after her, ran over from afar. When he saw everything clearly, he couldn't help but be shocked. Damn, this side of the mountain was almost flattened. Could it be? Qi Xian looked at Arbor in shock. She didn't have time to think about how this guy could be so strong. She quickly ran over and threw herself at Arbor. She reached out and hugged him tightly. Jojo, what happened? Tell me. I'll follow you. After being yelled at by this loud voice, The blurry scene in front of his eyes really receded like the tide, and there were no more flickering lights or passing shadows. Without Duanmu Qing, without the terrifying Qin Xian, without the blood-red color of the corpses on the ground. Qi Xianxian looked at her anxiously. Aba's eyes turned slightly red, and he could not hide the fear in his heart. He suddenly reached out and hugged Qi Xianxian, and he cried out emotionally, "Xianxian, I miss Emolian, I miss my mother, I miss Master. I want to go home." This terrible feeling was too uncomfortable to bear. It made one's heart palpitate and panic. She originally thought that she had solved all the mysteries of her previous life. She remembered everything, and she even personally solved her inner demon. She killed Qin Xan, and everything was over. It was like a person who had been trapped in a maze for 3 days and 3 nights. He finally saw the light and thought that he was about to walk out of the maze. Chapter 1631. However, behind the light was an abyss, an even more vast labyrinth. This made her powerful heart start to crack. She also couldn't endure this endless torment. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Don't worry. I will definitely help you. I will definitely stand on your side," Qi Xianxian said as if she was making a vow. "Little Fatty will too. Don't worry, little Fatty, and I will help you." Aba turned to look at Qi Xianxian. She looked at her pitifully, sniffled and said, "Xianxian, my shoulder hurts from your arm pressing on it." Qi Xianxian retracted her chubby hand awkwardly and laughed foolishly at her. She pulled her up and said, "Jojo, don't worry. I'm here for you. Speaking of which, just now, you ran away because you saw Duanmu Qing. Did you know him before?" Aba paused and shook her head. "I don't know him. Duanmu Qing seems to be the most reliable person in our team." When Qi Xianxian said this, she realized that Aba was looking at her. She quickly laughed and said, "Haha, of course, except for you." Aba snorted and looked at her. "When you came out, did that troublesome teacher say anything?" Qi Xuanxuan's expression changed. She slapped her thigh and said, "Yes, we have to go back quickly. That troublesome teacher might find trouble with us again." Gurgle. Qi Xianxian almost stepped on Little Water Droplet. She quickly retracted her foot and looked at Little Water Droplet, Little Soil, and Little Tray Ant standing in a row beside Aba's foot. This? What are these?" Aba lowered her arms slightly. Little Water Droplet, Little Soil, and Little Tray Ant jumped onto her arm at the same time and climbed up. Aba held the 3 little fellows and said to Qi Xianxian, who was in a daze, "Get to know each other. Little Water, Little Soil, and Little Tray Ant. This is the secret of how I comprehended the water and earth spirits. This is holy water, and this is holy land." Qi Xianxian couldn't control her shocked expression for a moment, and her jaw seemed to have dropped. Ugh. Qi Xianxian hurriedly held her small chin and swallowed her saliva. She stared at Little Water and Little Earth with sparkling eyes and said, "Wow, so this is the holy earth and holy water of our 5 spirit origins. Let me see, let me see." Ouch. Qi Xuanxuan's outstretched hand was gently whipped by the holy water. She quickly retracted her hand. "Humph, don't touch my lady holy water." The little guy turned into a little water baby and roared at Qi Xianxian with its arms akimbo. Then, it crawled all the way to Aba's arm. "Don't mess around." Aba touched the water helplessly. Master, don't be sad." "I'm not sad." She was just a little confused about her past life. She couldn't accept the sudden influx of dusty memories. That was why she couldn't accept it all at once. "Master, you have Dian here." Me too. And Little Soil, Little Soil." The lump of soil was unwilling to be left behind and continued to climb up. As expected of holy water and holy earth. They were both so noisy. Qi Xianxian sighed. She hurriedly turned to Aba and said, "What other abilities do you have to hide from me? Tell me everything in one go so that my heart won't be shocked and frightened all day long. It's too scary." Arbor's mood became better after being cheered up by this fellow. Chapter 1632. Arbor seriously considered Qi Xuanxuan's words. She tilted her head in thought and said, "Actually, the pills I sold last time were all made by me. My alchemist teacher has already passed away." Qi Xuanxuan's small mouth gaped into an O shape. By the time the two returned to the field hand in hand, almost everyone had finished their preparations and gathered in front of the mountain peak. The little fatty involuntarily sighed in relief when he saw the two little girls return. He hastily ran up and sized up Arbor. Seeing that she didn't have any injuries other than her slightly reddened eyes, he exclaimed softly, "You scared me to death. Where did you two run off to?" "They're going to set off in 5 minutes. That old stoic said that if you two don't return in 5 minutes, it'll be considered our team's forfeit. He said we automatically forfeited the entrance test, damn it." When the little stoic and Qi Xianxian heard the little fatty say the 3 words, "old stoic," they simultaneously killed him with their gazes. The little fatty instantly realized that he seemed to have used the wrong words. He hastily laughed awkwardly and coughed to cover it up. "Ahem ahem ahem, luckily you two came back. Our team is all here, so there's no harm in everyone getting to know each other." While the little fatty and Qi Xianxian were talking to Arbor, Duanmu Qing only felt his gaze uncontrollably land on that aloof little stoic's face. It was as if that little stoic face was like a magnet, deeply attracting his gaze. Duanmu Qing reflexively reached out to press his chest and felt his heartbeat inexplicably accelerate. He moved his lips and suddenly wanted to go up and say a few words to the little stoic, but he abruptly realized that the little stoic's gaze had never landed on him from beginning to end. "Hello everyone, I'm Mata." Mata jumped out first and waved at everyone. The little fatty and Qi Xianxian extended their fists at him at the same time. Mata hastily raised both his hands and said with a mischievous grin, "Don't hit, don't hit. If I didn't inform senior brother Duanmu to come help at the last minute, you guys would have been kicked out of the academy because you couldn't gather enough people." Qi Xianxian was startled. So this guy invited helpers. She looked Mata up and down and snorted. "At least you have some conscience." "He." Mata clasped his hands together and bowed to Qi Xianxian. "Take it as my apology to you. My name is..." Qi Xuanxuan's words were abruptly interrupted by instructor Wei Wei. "Is everything ready?" Wei Wei walked out of a stone house. "Let me remind you again. Prepare enough water bags. Otherwise, you will regret entering the depths of the lava mountain range." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Quite a number of people in the group hurriedly turned around and ran towards the academy's pond, intending to carry more water on their backs in case of an emergency. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but feel anxious. She turned to look at Arbor and asked, "What should we do? We didn't prepare any water bags." "Don't worry," Arbor and Fatty said in unison. Arbor was very clear that the things in her paradise star didn't need to be stored with profound sense at all. There was plenty of food and water on Paradise Star, as much as she wanted. As for mystic beasts, that was even more laughable. All of her beasts roamed around Paradise Star, unlike other people who needed to use profound sense to open their mystic beast spaces to release their mystic beasts. Chapter 1633. Therefore, these so-called restrictions were completely useless to Arbor. She had a divine cheating tool, Paradise Planet. Arbor turned to look at the little fatty who spoke. The little fatty took off his outer robe, revealing a circle of water sacks of various sizes hanging around his waist. He smiled at the two girls in a simple and honest manner. "Don't worry, I packed a lot of water for you guys. It'll definitely be enough to eat when we enter the lava mountain range." Arbor's gaze relaxed, and Qi Xianxian was so happy that she jumped up and punched the little fatty's shoulder. "Fatty, is it heavy? Why don't you give us a few sacks to carry? This bit of water is nothing." The little fatty put on his outer robe again. "I'll give you the water after we enter the lava mountain range. I'll hold it for you guys first." Tisk, Little Fatty is really considerate. Whoever becomes your wife in the future will definitely be very happy." As they spoke, the person who ran to fill the water sacks again hastily ran back. Many people scrambled to borrow a few more water sacks from the academy. However, Wei Wei swept a cold glance over them and said indifferently, "Time's up." Anguished wails came from the students on the mountain peak. Some people looked at the two small water sacks hanging around their waists with faint worry in their eyes. They felt that this instructor Wei Wei definitely wouldn't deliberately frighten them. Entering the mountain range without enough water might really be a suicidal act. They felt a bit panicked. What was going on? "Before we set off, each team member, show me your cultivation and mystic energy. Don't hide your strength. Let me know where your true strength lies. Show me your mystic beasts. If I discover that you summoned your mystic beasts during the test, it will be considered cheating and your qualifications to take the test will be revoked." Wei Wei turned to look at the strongest team and pointed at Che Rumen. "We'll start with your team." Che Rumen had a smile on her face as she raised her beautiful chin high with a proud expression. She reached out and circled a bean-sized flame. Che Rumen, 18 years old, peak level, 15 Mystic Cultivator, comprehended the 6th level of Spiritual Fire. Peng Guang, 25 years old, initial level, 14 Mystic Cultivator, has yet to fully comprehend Spiritual Water. Zhu Bozong, 22 years old, level, 14 Mystic Cultivator, comprehended the 5th level of Spiritual Water. Li Qian, 28 years old, level 1 Soul Master, level 5 Spiritual Fire. As Che Rumen's team members revealed their strength one by one and summoned their Xian beasts at the same time, everyone present looked at them enviously. As expected, it was the strongest team. In the team, only that wretched man with a protruding mouth and monkey-like cheeks was a level 13 Mystic Cultivator. He had only grasped the edge of spiritual energy comprehension and had yet to fully comprehend it. Among the other 4 people, 3 of them had actually comprehended the 5th level of spirit power. As for the captain, Che Rumen, she was even more talented. She had actually comprehended the 6th level of spirit fire. Those who could comprehend more than 60% of their spiritual energy were all amazing people. This was not something that could be mentioned in the same breath. They couldn't afford to offend them. Che Rumen's team was truly worthy of the title of the strongest team. The teams revealed their cultivation base and strength one by one. Among them, there were 2 people who had comprehended the 6th level of spiritual energy, attracting the envious and jealous gazes of the crowd. Wei Wei was unmoved and only looked on coldly from the sidelines. After the last and second team revealed their cultivation base, everyone's gazes uniformly shifted to Arbor's team. Looking at Arbor's team, their gazes carried hints of watching a good show. Chapter 1634. So what if those 3 youths had extraordinary strength? What could they do when they had to bring along 2 burdens with low cultivation? TSK, once they entered the mountain, they would know that no matter how beautiful a woman was, she would still be a burden and would only bring disaster to the team. Ko Hongwen, 19 years old. Peak level, 15 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Earth Spirit, Divine Beast Dazzling Iron Armored Tortoise. As soon as the announcement was made, everyone exclaimed, "Divine Beast, Divine Beast? Level 8 Earth Spirit? Oh my God! Level 8 Earth Spirit, I didn't hear wrongly, right?" Under the clamor, Qi Xianxian, Arbor, and the other 2 spoke indifferently one after another. Qi Xianxian, 15 years old. Peak level, 13 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Spirit Lightning, Divine Beast Golden-Furred Lion. Qi Xuanxuan's body trembled as a powerful mystic energy erupted from her hands. Everyone was dumbfounded. Arbor, 15 years old. Initial level, 15 Mystic Cultivator, level 9 Spirit Water, Divine Beast Ancient Bloodfire Phoenix. Ma Ta, 19 years old. Initial level, 1 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Spirit Water, Divine Beast. Duanmu Qing, 19 years old. Peak level, 3 Mystic Cultivator, Level 9 Spirit Wood, Divine Beast. Arbor, Ma Ta, and Duanmu Qing spoke almost at the same time, their voices intertwined. Everyone could only hear Level 9, Level 8, Level 9, and Divine Beast, Divine Beast, Divine Beast. They had completely forgotten how to adjust their facial expressions. Why did such a terrifying species like geniuses exist in this world? What did these so-called geniuses eat to grow up? Didn't they think that summoning divine beasts one by one to scare them was a very immoral and terrifying thing? Also, the power of the 5 spirits that were commonly comprehended in this world were all below level 6. This team was all at level 8 or 9 of the 5 spirits. What did this mean? As Arbor, Ma Ta, and Duanmu Qing released their cultivation and summoned their divine beasts one after another, a trace of spirit energy appeared in their hands. The entire place was practically silent. Screech. The cry of a phoenix was heard. Wei Wei's eyelids twitched. You don't have to summon your ancient bloodfire phoenix. I know. You know. No, you don't know. The ancient bloodblaze phoenix is just one of the saint beasts by my side. Qiao Mu pulled back her hand, but she didn't summon the phoenix. Instead, she faintly swept her gaze over the shocked crowd before turning to ask Wei Wei, "Can we set off now?" Wei Wei nodded. "I have a rough idea of where your strength lies. When the time comes, I will bring you to different areas to train. Do what you can." Everyone nodded with a stupefied expression. They had yet to recover from the shock. This was especially true for the people who had mocked Arbor and Qi Xianxian. Now, they felt their faces hurt. What people with no cultivation? What weak people? Their faces were slapped so hard that it hurt. What bullshit low strength? What bullshit no cultivation? 2 15-year-old girls were peak level, 13 mystic cultivators and initial level, 15 mystic cultivators respectively. Was there anything more terrifying than this? He was only 15 years old. What was even more frightening was that the average age of the Arbor team was no more than 20 years old, but they had the highest cultivation among all the idiots. There was even a 19-year-old level 3 spirit master. Why didn't such geniuses just die? Did they have to show off in front of normal people like them? See you tomorrow. Chapter 1635. It was such a huge blow to him that he even had the thought of killing himself. Che Rumen was like a wandering ghost as she slowly moved forward with the starting team. Until now, she still couldn't accept that her team was chased down from the strongest team by someone. What strongest team? It was merely a joke. Others who were stronger than them hadn't even said a word yet, but they were clowns jumping up and down, making a huge joke out of themselves. Now, Che Rumen only felt that her face was burning red. She really wanted to turn around and curse Arbor for being an idiot. Why did she blindly hide her strength for no reason? She was clearly a level 15 initial success mystic cultivator, yet she pretended to be someone without any cultivation. Didn't she feel ashamed? However, all the cursing stopped abruptly the moment their gazes landed on that stoic face. What to do if she couldn't curse? That D*MN stoic face was so hateful. She really hoped that she would die in the depths of that lava mountain range later. Che Rumen thought maliciously in her heart. She pulled her gaze away from Arbor and looked up at the stocky Li Qian. "Do you have the confidence to take first place?" Li Qian furrowed his brows. "That 15-year-old girl is called Arbor, right? Her team probably isn't easy to deal with. There are also 2 seniors helping them. We probably can't take first place, but second place shouldn't be a problem." "I don't want to be second." Che Rumen nearly screamed. "I, Che Rumen, would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. I just want to be first. I want our team to be the first in the test." When Li Qian heard that, he looked down at Che Rumen and chuckled as he reached out to hug that woman's slender waist. He said with a smile, "What's the rush? The competition hasn't started yet, right? It's not impossible for you to take first place. I think that team is also made up of little girls and young boys. Their average age isn't over 20, so they definitely don't have much combat experience. They're just born in an aristocratic family and have unusually high talent. If we secretly use some tricks, we might be able to take first place. Li Qian reached out his hand and secretly touched Che's delicate butt. He grinned and said, "But if I help you this time, you have to promise to let me change to another prop." Che Rumen couldn't help but tremble when she heard this. Thinking of Li Qian, that pervert, trying several props on her body, she suddenly felt her body tighten. However, she couldn't offend this level 1 spiritual master for the time being. She still had to rely on him. Che Rumen gave a tender laugh, raised her hand and touched Li Qian's chest. "You dead ghost, thinking about that all day long. As long as you help me get first place, I'll do whatever you want." "Hee hee. Isn't that because you're such a cute little thing?" Li Qian laughed. The two of them mingled at the back of the group, walking forward while holding each other's arms. However, after the two of them flirted with each other for a while, they felt waves of heat rolling in. The surrounding air began to rise in temperature, and it was unbearably hot. The two of them quickly separated. Che Rumen used her sleeves to wipe the sweat on her forehead and neck. She asked, "Why are you so hot?" "It's much hotter than the peak." Li Qian was so hot that his body and mind were irritated. "That's for sure." A member of the other team hurriedly nodded and interrupted, "The peak above has been cooled down by the spiritual water shield, so naturally it's different from here." Chapter 1636. Che Rumen was unbearably hot. Taking advantage of the fact that her mystic consciousness had not been sealed by the instructor, she hurriedly took out the water flask from her inner world and gulped down half of the water in one go. Hanging the remaining water flask at her waist, Che Rumen asked impatiently, "How much longer until we reach the entrance?" "We should be there soon." The team's advance slowed down. Everyone was originally walking on the winding mountain path, but now they stopped in front of a fiery red stone field. The rocks here were all roasted red, and everything that entered their eyes was bright red. Auber stopped along with the team. You 3 teams will hunt 10 level 13 mystic beasts near the entrance of the Redstone Forest," Wei Wei said coldly, pointing at 3 of the 23 teams. "Now, I will seal all of your mystic consciousness. When the time comes, you can only use your own cultivation and strength when fighting with the mystic beasts in the mountain range. Have you taken out the water and food from your inner world? I'll give you 1 more minute to prepare. Hurry." Che Rumen's expression was ugly. She took out the other 2 flasks of water from her inner world and stuffed a lot of dry rations into her arms. She could not help but protest. "Instructor, the environment here is so bad, you won't let us use our inner worlds? Isn't this entrance test too harsh?" "Those who don't want to take the test can leave now," Wei Wei said coldly. "I've already told you the rules. It's meaningless to raise objections now." In the next second, when everyone was caught off guard, he made a move and sealed everyone's profound senses. This move made all the students spontaneously admire him. Che Rumen secretly moved her mystic consciousness. Sure enough, she could not use it. For a moment, Che Rumen's expression became extremely ugly. She really could not open her inner world. She could not help but regret not taking out the remaining 2 flasks of water from her inner world. Now she only had 2.5 flasks of water hanging on her body. Was it not a bit too little? It was too late now. Her inner world was already sealed. Looking at Instructor Wei Wei's appearance, Che Rumen could not help but feel uncertain. Could it be that what Wei Wei said was true? Even if they encountered a large spirit beast and were in a life-and-death situation, he would not help them? Wei Wei stretched out his hand and shook it. A heavenly Tao oath that was suffused with golden light spread out layer by layer in front of everyone like an unfolding scroll, revealing rows of crooked names on it. "Now that you're here, if you still want to participate in the test, you can come forward and sign this life and death oath. If you don't want to sign, you can leave." Everyone's expression changed drastically. They weren't blind. They could clearly see what was written on the heavenly Tao oath book. The oath stated that everyone had volunteered to participate in the entrance test. In the process of the entrance exam, if one were to encounter any life or death situations, there would not be any teachers to save them. Everything depended on the cooperation of the team to win the battle. Every time a team managed to defeat 10 Xian beasts designated by their instructor, they would be able to summon their instructor and apply to leave the beast area of the lava mountain range. Those who failed to complete the task within the specified time would be deemed to have failed the test and would have to leave the mountain immediately. Everyone had willingly signed the Heavenly Tao Oath after reading it. Their life and death had nothing to do with the academy. It's just a life and death agreement. Are you going to sign it or not? If you don't sign it, you can get lost immediately. Chapter 1637. If they signed it, no one could guarantee that they would be able to survive in the lava mountain range. Immediately, a few teams retreated at the same time. To put it bluntly, the elite academy was just their second choice. Actually, most of them originally wanted to go to the 4 major academies of the Sun, Moon and Stars Academy. It was only because the other party's fees were high that they settled for the next best thing. They wanted to try their luck at the elite academy first and accumulate experience or money before going to the 4 major academies next year. What a joke, it was just an entrance test. They did not want to throw their lives away. Once this life and death agreement came out, 7 to 8 teams immediately disbanded. They looked at Instructor Wei Wei with ugly expressions and said, "Now that we are not participating in the elite academy's entrance test, shouldn't Instructor unseal our mystic senses?" Wei Wei glanced coldly at those few teams. "Your mystic senses will automatically be unsealed after 7 days." What he meant was that they could not unseal it now. Those people's faces instantly turned green as they glared at Wei Wei unkindly. They were so angry that they gritted their teeth. If this Wei Wei had taken out this life and death agreement for them to sign from the start, who knew how many people would still be left after entering the mountain with him? But he had to wait until he led them into the lava mountain range before telling them about this. How was this an entrance test training? It was basically a life and death battle for them. Whoever was willing could go. Excluding those people who had left, the 15 teams that were left behind, other than Auber's team of 5 who were calm, the others' expressions were more or less stiff and ugly. Che Rumen turned to look at Xiao Mu and the others, and her eyes involuntarily flickered. These young ladies were quite courageous. Even at this time, their expressions didn't change at all. But it was also because they were truly capable. Che Rumen glanced at Auber's Qi Xianxian and the rest again before retracting her gaze. She walked forward and wrote her name on the scroll and stamped her own blood seal. Li Qian, Pang Guang, Zhu Bozong and the rest of Che Rumen's team also walked forward and stamped their names before silently retreating a few steps. When Xiao Mu and the others finished imitating the plan, they turned around and discovered that 2 other teams were still discussing whether to sign or not. Wei Wei's face was stiff as he suddenly took back the Heavenly Tao Oath and said coldly, "All right, those who have signed the Heavenly Tao Oath, continue to follow me." The members of the 2 hesitant teams immediately became anxious. "Instructor, we've decided to participate too." "I won't wait for you if it's too late. Come early next year." Wei Wei threw these 2 sarcastic words at the members of the 2 teams, whose faces were ashen, and directly led the 13 teams into the depths of the lava mountain range. I believe that most of you who have stayed behind have a good mental endurance. Those who were eliminated with just a few words showed their cowardice at the slightest attempt. They aren't suitable for this large-scale trial at all. A large map appeared in his hand. After looking at it for a while, he said, "Everyone, follow me." The lava mountain range is divided into 3 major regions. Our main area for this trial can be called a first-class area. In other words, it's the standard hinterland of the lava mountain range. Of course, this area is considered the deepest hinterland of the lava mountain range, but actually, it's not. Chapter 1638. The true hinterland of the lava mountain range is actually only considered a Class 2 area. Wei Wei glanced aloofly at everyone and said, I'll give each team 1 minute to pass the map around and remember the approximate location. Let me remind you that with your current abilities, don't enter Class 2 and Class 3 areas. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The team members couldn't help but look at each other in dismay, and they reached out to take the map with their hearts in a jumble. They wanted to memorize the topographic map in their minds by rote. However, not everyone was like Mo Lien, who had a photographic memory. Even if our dear Chiao Mu saw such an enormous map, she wouldn't be able to remember everything in a short time. Arbor frowned as she turned her head to avoid looking at the map dizzily. Yet she saw Ma Ta, who was standing on the side with his arms crossed, smile vulgarly at them. You guys are in luck today. Boss Duanmu has an extremely good memory. When he was training in the Lava Mountain Range, he once passed through the Class 2 area. He's very familiar with this place. With him leading the way, we don't have to worry about stepping into the forbidden area by mistake. Abba saw that Duanmu Qing only glanced at the map a few times before looking away. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at her. She immediately averted her gaze, but her movements were extremely stiff. The little stoic didn't understand what the hell she was trying to avoid, and she felt a bit embarrassed. Qi Xianxian turned to glance at her and suddenly stepped forward to say, "Instructor Wei Wei, please lead us into the area first." Wei Wei glanced at Qi Xianxian indifferently. "You guys are the last." Qi Xianxian, Che Rumen snorted on the side. Just as she was about to mock them, she heard Instructor Wei Wei say, "Your team's overall strength is the strongest, so it's only right that I bring you to the strongest area to hunt mystic beasts." "I'm thanking your entire family." Qi Xianxian and the little fatty rolled their eyes at the same time. Che Rumen was about to mock them, but her words were stuck in her throat in that instant, and she held her tongue with a cold expression. "All right." Wei Wei put away the map and said aloofly, "Have you all looked at the map clearly? Don't blame me for not warning you again. If you accidentally step into a second-class area, you might not even have a corpse left. Instructor, are there any powerful Xian beasts in the second and third categories?" "Profound beast?" Wei Wei sneered. "The second category region has a 1,000-year-old divine beast overseeing it. As for the third category region," Wei Wei purposely turned to look at Arbor and said to her, "Although your ancient Bloodfire Phoenix is a holy beast, it is only a young beast now. Don't show off in the third-class area, or you'll regret it." From the very beginning, Chiao Mu had sensed the prickly feeling coming from this instructor Wei Wei. When she heard what he said, she turned her head and looked at him seriously. "Are you okay with this? Is there something wrong with his brain? Don't you remember that you sealed everyone's profound senses just now? Instructor, after one's profound sense is sealed, they won't be able to summon their contracted beasts." Qi Xianxian added in a lukewarm tone. Instructor Wei Wei's cold expression stiffened slightly, then he turned his head and snorted. "Let's go." Arbor's group silently followed the group. Actually, after several rounds of selection, there were only 13 teams, including Arbor's team, that were willing to continue the test. Chapter 1639. And out of these 13 teams, who would be able to make it out of the Lava Mountain Range in the end? No one could say for sure how many teams there would be. Don't think that the Type 1 area that Instructor Wei Wei mentioned was small. In fact, each area was at least tens of thousands of square kilometers. Therefore, Arbor and the other teams were brought to the Type 1 area. Almost every team was separated by a large distance, and it would be impossible for them to bump into each other within 4 to 6 hours. Every team was thrown into their own small area to complete their mission. After Wei Wei finally left Arbor and the other 4 behind, he glanced at them coldly and said, "Every year, the Elite Academy will only accept 5 students. I hope that after 7 days, you will still be a complete team. I forgot to tell you that if someone dies in your team, it means that your teamwork is not good enough. At that time, the remaining few of you will not have the qualifications to pass the entrance test. Of course, this is only for you, you and you. The 3 of you." Instructor Wei Wei pointed at Chiao Mu, the little fatty, and Qi Xianxian as he said coldly, After all, there are already 2 students from top academies in your team. After saying this, Instructor Wei Wei left quickly. Even the last few words that he said to them were filled with mockery and sarcasm. Arbor frowned and stared at Instructor Wei Wei's back as he left. Qi Xianxian could not help but laugh. This instructor is really funny. Since we stepped into the lava mountain range, he has been mocking and ridiculing us until now. Isn't he tired of it? Mata hurriedly said. Actually, Instructor Wei Wei is still very serious and responsible. He is just a little. Qi Xianxian glared at him fiercely. Shut up. You and that idiot instructor are on the same side. Anyway, this trial will not affect you at all. If you want to quit, then do it as soon as possible. Miss Qi, what are you saying? Since we have promised to help you pass the entrance test, we will naturally not give up on you halfway. Mata's ears twitched as he said this. He turned his head to look at a few red-skinned, sharp-fanged foxes that suddenly appeared from behind a pile of crimson-red rocks. He suddenly conjured a few streams of water spirit energy and threw them in their direction. Go! Duanmu Qing gave a low shout, and the 4 of them immediately ran in his direction. Then, they quickly jumped and dodged on the rocks, avoiding the red-skinned, sharp-fanged foxes. This group of red-skinned, fanged foxes surged out from all directions. As their numbers increased, the expressions of Duanmu Qing and the others also started to turn serious. The little fox in the lead stared at Arbor and the others with its small red eyes. It suddenly jumped up and was about to pounce and bite Arbor's calf. Suddenly, a fluffy white tail smashed into the little fox's head. With a loud bang, the red-skinned, sharp-fanged fox that was trying to bite Arbor's calf was smashed into pieces by a large, furry tail. Duanmu Qing and the others turned to look and could not help but be slightly stunned. Beside Arbor, a little fat squirrel had appeared out of nowhere. It stuck out its little belly and was moving quickly beside Arbor's leg. Wherever it passed, no matter how sharp-tongued the little foxes were, they were all turned into ghosts under the tail. Xian, let me introduce you. This is my second contracted beast other than the ancient Bloodfire Phoenix. It is called Chirp Chirp Chirp. Chapter 1640. Qi Xuanxuan's wooden face did not have much expression. Instead, it was the little fatty who cried out in surprise. What the hell? Aren't you cheating, Jojo? Haha, but I like it. That whatever teacher, he thought that you would be at your wit's end after he sealed your phoenix. Who would have thought that, haha. You even have a squirrel by your side. When the fatty said this, he suddenly paused and frowned. Why do I remember that before the ancient Bloodfire Phoenix, you seem to have summoned a big green bird? She also has a little white snake. Qi Xianxian said woodenly, her face still maintaining a calm expression. Arbor glanced at them. Let's break out of the encirclement before these red-skinned foxes surround us. Everyone responded and ran wildly, jumping up and down all kinds of strange rocks. Not long after, they left the group of red-skinned foxes far behind. Originally, after their leader was killed by the little fat squirrel's tail, the foxes had somewhat given up. Now that they saw the humans running away so quickly, they immediately lost interest in chasing them. A portion of them pretended to chase for a few hundred miles before they retreated. They cried out a few times and ran away with their tails between their legs. Qi Xianxian heaved a sigh of relief. These red-skinned fanged foxes are quite fast. They suddenly rushed out from behind the rocks. If not for their fast speed, they would have been surrounded by this group of little beasts. The group was chased by the foxes for a few hundred miles. After the fanged foxes left, the little fatty panted and couldn't wait to find a rock to sit on. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Arbor glanced at him, then turned to look at the fox corpses that were scattered far away on the road they came from. I'll go clean up. The task given to them by the instructor was to hunt and kill 10 second-grade spirit beasts. With their current cultivation, this could be considered a challenging task. Although these foxes were all level 12 or 13 mystical beasts, Arbor planned to clean up the fox corpses to see if there were any crystal cores in their bodies. At the same time, the 17-story Tower of Punishment, which was black and covered in a layer of blazing red flames, stood in an unknown space. As this space slowly drifted through the lower star zone, the 17-level Tower of Punishment would occasionally light up. Every time it flashed, the drifting spatial door would open. Sometimes, one or two unlucky fellows would be sucked in. On the 13th floor of the tower, a certain peach blossom was lazily leaning against a large round bed covered with felt. Holding a wine glass in one hand and a fruit in the other, he sighed and said, "These illusory things are illusory after all." It was tasteless in the mouth. Stingy. Please, don't be so picky. At least you have something to eat. What about me? On the opposite side of the round bed, there was a row of iron chains hanging on the wall. A young man whose hands were bound by iron chains couldn't help but roll his eyes and say, "I've been hanging on this wall for 10 years, big brother." "How long have you been in here? They even entertained you with good food and drinks. That's why I said that the heavenly Tao also differs from person to person. You're just a lackey." The moment the young man finished speaking, a bolt of lightning fell from the top of his head and struck him until he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Chapter 1641. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's mouth twitched. His hand, which was holding the wine cup, trembled slightly. "Old man, you should stop talking. I've been here for so long, and I've watched you get struck by lightning every day. My balls hurt for you. Who's the old man? Who's the old man?" The young man glared at the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. "You brat, don't think that you can call me an old man just because you're 1 or 2 years younger than me. When I get out, I'm going to marry 8 to 10 young wives. Don't call me that, you're making me sound old." He, what are you two talking about? You're having a good time." A voice interrupted their conversation. "Heh, look at you. It's all because you're so annoying over there that you've attracted that woman." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal poured himself a cup of wine leisurely and glanced at the young man hanging on the wall. "To be honest, at your age, you'd better not go out and harm other young ladies. You should just stay in the punishment realm obediently." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smirked. He looked up and saw a woman with a large peony hairpin and red silk walking in lightly. She held a silk handkerchief in front of her face. She took a few steps forward shyly and slowly put down the silk handkerchief that covered her face. She revealed a face that was comparable to a monkey's butt. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were full of tenderness. She twisted her body and winked at the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. The wine cup in the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's hand almost rolled off the bed. He was frightened by this woman. "You, Brother Ma Jetchen, do my clothes look better than mine?" The peony walked half a circle around the bed and gently swayed her red silk dress. She raised her eyebrows and winked at the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal again. "Ha ha 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 ha." The young man hanging on the wall laughed wildly. "Peony Fairy, your face is now like a monkey's butt. Ha 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 ha, do you think it looks good or not?" "Shut up, Dao Wuji. I'm not talking to you." The Peony Fairy turned her hand, and a small hammer appeared in her hand. There was a trace of lightning power on it. The young man named Everlasting Blade didn't seem to care at all. He curled his lips and was forced to say something against his will. In truth, peonies and peach blossoms are a perfect match. The Peony Fairy giggled. "Shut up." A certain peach blossom's handsome face immediately darkened, and he glared angrily at the youth. Saber Wuji pursed his lips and closed his mouth unconcernedly. Since he failed to break through the tower 10 years ago, he was trapped in the 13th level of the punishment realm by the Peony Fairy with a spirit-locking rope. All these years, he had been so aggrieved. Now, any random junior could order him around. Thinking back to the days when he was on Siuan Planet, he lived a life of luxury and had more than 10 wives. Compared to now, sigh. Brother Jian Chen. The Peony Fairy wriggled her body and said, "Why don't you stay with me in this punishment realm?" Jian Chen shuddered and hurriedly shook his head like a rattledrum. No, of course not. Just looking at this woman for an extra second was enough to sting his eyes, let alone having him stay here and face her for the rest of his life. Stop joking. Jian Chen suddenly stood up and kicked over the fruit basket on the bed. Come. The Peony Fairy's eyes lit up. Ah, I'm coming. Chapter 1642. Therefore, Yuan Shichen did not hesitate to kick the Peony Fairy, who rushed forward happily. This kick carried a fierce momentum and went straight to the Peony Fairy's chest. The Peony Fairy was shocked and hurriedly jumped, dodging Yuan Shichen's sudden kick. Wow! The Peony Fairy exclaimed, frowning a pair of beautiful eyebrows, and cried discontentedly, Yuan Shichen, you actually recovered. In just a few days, this man had recovered 70% of his cultivation. It should be known that in this punishment zone, the strength of the challenger was suppressed greatly. Although it seemed that Yuan Shichen's cultivation was about the same as hers, in fact, Yuan Shichen's cultivation was at least half suppressed by the punishment tower. Moreover, this was only the 13th floor. Yuan Shichen would continue to challenge the 14th and 15th floors, and the consumption of sacred power would only increase. Moreover, under the suppression of the punishment tower, the recovery of sacred power consumed would be 10 times slower than usual. Therefore, some people were forced to stay on the first floor for a few years, or even more than 10 years, because every time after challenge failed, the recovery period would be very slow. For example, the saber fool in front of her. From 10 years ago to now, he might have challenged no less than 100 times. Yuan Shichen, this guy, from entering the tower until now, only a month's time, but directly from the first floor to the 13th floor. These 2 days, he was stuck on the 13th floor with the Peony Fairy. But the Peony Fairy had a strange feeling in her heart. She always felt that in these 2 or 3 days, the man in front of her was afraid that she would not be able to keep him. Alas, such a good-looking man, why didn't he want to be with her? She had been single for 100 years. This Yuan Shichen, he really did not know how to be tender to the fairer sex. If he was willing to stay here, then they would be husband and wife. Then in the future, the man and woman pair would guard the 13th floor together. Let's see who could escape from the hands of the husband and wife. Sister! Sister! Hearing this excited cry, the Peony Fairy's head could not help but swell. This cry was so crisp and sharp, needless to say, it must be her twin sister guarding the 12th floor, Ginkgo Fairy, who had come. Sister! Don't come over. The Peony Fairy stood in front of Yuan Shichen, stretched out her hands in front of Yuan Shichen, and pushed her sister, who jumped over. I tell you, brother-in-law can't be bullied. Big brother Ji Chen is the person that I, your sister, have taken a fancy to. Don't you dare snatch him from me. What's more, you weren't even able to keep him here for half a day. At the very least, I managed to keep him here for 7 days. I just made a mistake. Fairy Ginkgo almost drooled when she saw who Jian Chen, her elder sister, the Peony Fairy, saw her younger sister's stupid look and immediately reached out to cover her face. In fact, her younger sister, Fairy Ginkgo, was almost as strong as her. That was why one of them could guard the 12th floor and the other the 13th floor. The problem was that her sister, that pig head, was infatuated when she saw Ji Chen. Halfway through the fight, because of a close-range attack, the handsome man was right in front of her. That enlarged handsome face actually made her pig-like little sister faint. At that time, Ma Shichen looked at Fairy Ginkgo with a weird expression. After looking at her for a long while, she helplessly entered the passageway to the 13th floor. There were weirdos every year, and there were probably a lot of weirdos in the punishment realm. Chapter 1643. Although he had experienced it a long time ago, he was still troubled by those weirdos from the first floor to the 13th floor. Although there were weirdos when challenging the Tower of Punishment in the past, there were not many of them. In recent years, he felt that there were more and more weirdos in the Tower of Punishment. He wondered if it was because the old batch had been released, and the new batch had some flaws in their personalities. He felt that the guards of the Tower of Punishment were the ones who made him feel the most helpless out of all the people he had challenged in the realm of punishment over the years. Sigh, how could he endure this? He wondered if his old friend from the 14th floor was still there. In the past, he had fought his way to the 14th floor, and after drinking a few cups with his old friend would open a back door and let him out. He wondered if he would be so lucky this year. Speechless, Marshurchin turned his face away and swung his fan to cover half of his face. Peony, tell your sister to stop staring at me. That look in her eyes was as if she wanted to eat him. Peony Fairy coughed lightly and tugged at her sister's sleeves. Ginkgo, why did you come up here? Just now when you entered the door, you were still excitedly calling out for your sister. Why are your eyes all on your brother-in-law now? Who the hell is your brother-in-law? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was even more speechless. Hearing the pretty man's words, Ginkgo Fairy immediately smiled and returned to her senses. She giggled at Marshurchin and then turned to look at her sister, Peony Fairy, and said, Sister, I heard that there's an extremely powerful challenger coming down. I heard it from Sister Poisonous Spider on the 8th floor. Oh, that man is very handsome. Ginkgo Fairy looked as if she was about to drool. She tugged at Peony Fairy and said excitedly, I heard that this man took less than half a month to go from the 1st floor to the 11th floor. Ha ha ha, I think he's coming to challenge my 12th floor today. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Ginkgo Fairy clasped her hands together like a fangirl reaching out to her idol. I really want to see what that man looks like. Do you think he's willing to stay and be my husband? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal rolled his eyes. You two sisters can't think of anything else other than husband. Peony Fairy said expressionlessly, You'll see when you turn around. Huh? I said, turn around and you'll see him. The Peony Fairy was so angry that she slapped her younger sister's head. Are you a pig? She clearly knew that he was coming up. You even dared to come to my 13th floor. Aren't you going easy on him and allowing him to pass through the 12th level? The Ginkgo Fairy turned around in a daze. When she saw the figure of the man standing in front of the passage, her pink mouth immediately opened wide. Wow! The black-clothed young man at the door was elegant and graceful. His features were picturesque, and he was indescribably handsome. He just stood at the side of the door with an indifferent expression. His pair of phoenix eyes swept across the people on the 13th floor. The two women immediately felt as if they were electrocuted by his gaze. They were completely unable to move a finger. When Ji-chan saw the man at the door, he couldn't help but laugh. Yo, you're here too. Limitless Blade, the young man who was hung on the wall by the spirit binding rope, was also amused. Yo, kid, you actually managed to meet an old friend in a foreign land. Chapter 1644. How about we discuss something? Why don't you two think of a way to release me from this god-locking rope? With the three of us working together, killing these two women will be a matter of minutes. Bang! As soon as she finished speaking, the small thunderhammer in the Peony Fairy's hand immediately released a bolt of lightning, directly bombarding Dao Wuji's head. F***CK. A hole was about to be blown out of his head. Dao Wuji grimaced and glared at the Peony Fairy. Can you be a bit lighter? In any case, I have lived on your floor for 10 years. Isn't it good to have a little tenant hobby? This guy's mouth was cheap, he was looking for a beating. Ji-chan looked at Dao Wuji without the slightest sympathy, and laughed as she leaped forward. I have challenged the tower so many times, but this is the first time I have met someone who can challenge the tower together. I don't know what the heavenly Dao is up to, but I always feel that there is a follow-up move waiting for them. Boss, how about us two brothers block these two women for you first? You go up first. A simple and honest voice came from outside the passage. Peony and Ginkgo both widened their eyes, looking in astonishment at the pair of brothers who walked into the 13th floor. The pair of brothers' sturdy bodies blocked the entrance, immediately blocking the passage. The tower-like man with dark skin looked very similar. They both had wide mouths and sword-like eyebrows, neat short black hair, and a red cloth band tied on each of their foreheads. You two, aren't you the Luo brothers? Weren't these the Luo brothers who guarded the 10th floor of the tower? Ginkgo and Peony were both shocked. The Luo brothers actually called this man boss? The two turned to look at the expressionless man at the same time, unable to conceal a trace of astonishment in their eyes. This man subdued the Luo brothers? However, in front of the man, the words that Sister Ginkgo originally wanted to ask disappeared in an instant. Looking at that handsome face, Fairy Ginkgo immediately threw away her helmet and abandoned her armor. She took a step forward, and asked in an extremely strange and soft voice, "Little brother, do you lack a wife?" Ji Chen on the side couldn't hold back her laughter, and burst out laughing, "He really doesn't lack a wife." Emolienne turned her head and looked at Hu Jinchen with a trace of doubt in her eyes. He thought that it would be impossible for him to meet He Chen in the Tower of Punishment. What was going on this time? The Heavenly Tao actually didn't set up a barrier to separate everyone who challenged the tower from each other? "Beauty, do you really not lack a wife?" Fairy Ginkgo asked with a look of disappointment. "Then are you willing to stay in our Tower of Punishment?" What answered her was Emolienne abruptly flinging a flame at her. He Chen laughed loudly. Suddenly, he threw a punch at his old rival, the Peony Fairy. "Peony, why don't we make a deal? How about you let us out of the tower? I'll let Emolienne drink with you for free. It's more appropriate to stay behind and be the husband of the fort. You want to dismiss me, Peony, with just a few drinks? Do you think I'm as stupid as Ginkgo?" Peony's expression suddenly turned solemn. The small hammer in her left hand flashed, and a bolt of lightning pounced down, falling straight down on, hanging on the wall on Dao Wuji's body. Dao Wuji was caught off guard this time, and was immediately electrocuted to the point of ecstasy. He couldn't help but curse, "Don't you fucking have eyes? Who are you striking? What are you striking your grandpa for?" The small lightning hammer in Peony's hand suddenly grew 1/2 a meter in the wind. She reached out with her hand and rested the hammer on her shoulder. Chapter 1645. She flashed to the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's side and hammered his head. The Peony Fairy's lips curled into a wide smile. "Our cultivations are about the same, but in this Tower of Punishment, your cultivation is suppressed to the God realm. Do you think you can fight me for more than 100 moves if I get serious?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled at her. He stretched out his slender fingers and waved them in front of her. A wooden vine suddenly whipped around the Peony Fairy's arm. "I asked you to stay with me, but you didn't want to. Now you're using a wooden vine to wrap around my arm." The Peony Fairy cast a coquettish glance at him. However, her face was now red, and it was quite an eyesore to look at. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal narrowed his eyes at her. With a flip of his hand, the Peony Fairy suddenly felt the ground beneath her feet sink. When she looked down again, the Peony Fairy could not help but be shocked. It turned out that countless vines had drilled out of the ground at some point in time and were tightly wrapped around her feet. "You!" The Peony Fairy struggled hard and realized that she could not break free from the binding power of the wooden vines. The vines on the ground wrapped around her limbs and gradually climbed up. In a short while, the Peony Fairy's entire body was tightly wrapped. It was as if she was wrapped in a wooden cocoon. Her entire body was lifted into the air and hung high on a wooden vine. "Don't waste your energy." Seeing that she was still struggling, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but say coldly, "These little cuties of mine will continuously absorb the power in your body." As time passed, the wooden vines wrapped around the Peony Fairy would only become stronger and stronger. The Peony Fairy, on the other hand, would gradually weaken as the saint power in her body was drained. After the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal temporarily fixed the Peony Fairy, he turned to look at Emolienne on the other side. Emolienne's speed of action was even faster. While the Peony Fairy was being hung up by Ji Chen, the battle between Emolienne and Ginkgo had already ended. It was laughable. Halfway through the battle, Ginkgo Fairy held her sword and stared blankly at Prince Mo's approaching figure. On the other side, Prince Mo, who never knew how to be gentle with women, naturally acted according to the situation. He decisively chopped down with his blade and knocked Fairy Ginkgo unconscious. Therefore, there was no suspense in this battle at all, because the opponent was a weirdo who only knew how to look at handsome men. Prince Mo walked forward with a cold expression. Dao Wuji, who was hanging on the wall, hurriedly called out to him, "Hey little brother, can you help me release this god-locking rope?" Emolienne turned her head to look at him. The purple flame in her hand suddenly turned into 3 purple knives, which flew toward Dao Wuji's arm. Endless Blade broke out in a cold sweat at his actions. What kind of joke was this? If he was struck by this purple flame, how could his arm be preserved? Bang! Bang! The spirit-binding rope suddenly broke apart. There were still a few purple sparks of fire on it. With a few cracking sounds, the spirit-binding rope broke into pieces and fell to the ground. Dao Wuji let out a long breath, looking at the young man in front of him with a slightly complicated expression. Sigh, the new generation really excels the old. Hu Shurchen alone was enough to deal a blow to him. Now, this young man was even more impressive. Looking back at the peony fairy, who was hanging in mid-air by the wooden vines, Dao Wuji grinned. "Let's go to the 14th level. I'll make up for it tomorrow. I'll break it today." Chapter 1646. Put me down, put me down. The peony fairy, who had half of her strength absorbed by the wooden vines, was hanging in mid-air, shaking her delicate body desperately. She shouted angrily, "Shurchen, Shurchen, do you think it's appropriate for you to run away and leave me here?" "It's appropriate." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal blinked and nodded vigorously. He thought it was very appropriate. Could it be that he had masochistic tendencies? It was not easy to hang this noisy woman up, so how could he go up and let her go now? Stop joking. How could he, Shurchen, do such a thing? Shurchen, Shurchen. Seeing that the man was about to run away without looking back, the peony fairy could not help but panic. Shurchen. And that person. That little fellow. Stop right there. The Luo brothers on the 10th floor, what's wrong with you? The 2 brothers, who were as tall as iron towers, looked at each other and sympathetically at the peony fairy. "Peony, we are friends. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't look for trouble. Quickly get rid of them." The peony fairy was speechless. "Shurchen, do you think you can escape from the 17th floor of the Tower of Punishment just like this? Let me tell you, even if you bring these 2 traitors, it's useless. The people upstairs are not the group of rookies downstairs. Besides, even if the brothers and sisters downstairs have been defeated by you once, if they join forces, you won't be able to handle them." After saying that, she added angrily, "Even if you add these 2 traitors, can the 5 of you deal with the many brothers and sisters downstairs?" Dao Wuji immediately pulled out the saber at his waist and smashed it on the wall beside him. "Shut up, you woman. I've been listening to you for 10 years. Why are you still so long-winded before we leave? Dao Wuji, you're itching for a beating. Be careful or I'll destroy you with heavenly lightning. Come on, come on." Dao Wuji swung the long saber in his hand smugly. "If you have the guts, don't run. Wait here. The brothers downstairs will definitely come up soon." "Forget it, peony." The Luo brothers speechlessly glanced at the peony fairy, who was wrapped in a wooden cocoon. "Do you think the brothers downstairs are all idiots? Those who admit defeat all follow my big brother. Those who didn't submit are all dead now." "What?" The peony fairy was stupefied. "What do you mean? Where are the poisonous spiders on the 8th floor? 8th floor." The Luo brothers rolled their eyes. "The 8th floor has been razed to the ground. What venomous spiders? There's nothing left of venomous spiders. Poisonous spider was killed." The peony fairy was shocked. "You 2 bastards. Venomous spider has been killed by someone. How can you be so indifferent?" The Luo brothers looked at each other in confusion. "Poisonous spider's mother isn't even our biological mother. What does her death have to do with us brothers?" The peony fairy nodded and said, "That's true. Everyone was speechless. Are you AF * King Joker? I thought you were going to continue scolding me righteously, but who would have thought? He Chen put me down. At most, I won't ask you to be my husband. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sneered mockingly. You think you can suppress me with your skills? Okay. He Chen, haven't you been suppressed by me before? Didn't you rest for 7 days before you waited for an opportunity to counterattack? You suppressed me. Chapter 1647. Master Immortal. Strange. Why does this conversation sound so unpleasant to the ear? He kept feeling that something was wrong. Especially when he noticed the strange look in Prince Mo's eyes, he couldn't help but glare at him. What are you looking at? Let's go. He Chen grumpily walked toward the passage on the 14th floor and asked, Emilienne, since you are here, what about my little girl? Emilienne glanced at him grumpily and turned to leave. What do you mean by your little girl? She is mine. Huh? He Chen, are you really not going to let me down? He Chen. Thud. The peony fairy felt the wooden cocoon on her head loosen slightly, and she slid down. Because the wooden vines had absorbed more than half of her saint energy, the peony fairy felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. She almost tripped and fell to the ground. When she looked up, she saw that they had entered the passage. The peony fairy couldn't help but snort and say sarcastically, the little Tai Sui on the 14th floor is not easy to deal with. You guys have to be careful. His earth-spirit bonding technique has already reached the peak of perfection. Even I am not his opponent. Wu Jidao pursed his lips. Damn, this old woman is really a strange person. But without her advice, it is just a little Tai Sui. Do you think the 5 of us can't kill it? Emilienne and He Chen both ignored this dunce. After they reached the 14th floor, they didn't feel anything wrong. In the middle of the empty floor, they could see the end of it. There was no one. Don't tell me that little Tai Sui is hiding after seeing that there are so many of us. Dao Wuji laughed heartily. Emilienne, He Chen, and the Luo brothers all ignored him. Wu Jidao wanted to walk toward the center of the tower, but he found that he couldn't lift his feet. Looking down, he couldn't help but be shocked. My leg. My legs are gone. He Chen didn't want to talk to this idiot. What legs? Aren't your legs here? However, he was entangled by a layer of soft mud, and his legs sank into the thick layer of soft mud. As soon as they entered the 14th level, little Tai Sui launched an earth spirit attack at them. Yuan Shichen snorted, and an emerald green seedling suddenly drilled out of the soil. At first, it was just a thin and weak seedling, but then, as if it had eaten a growth stimulant, it began to sprout branches and leaves, and gradually grew stronger. Not long after, a towering tree grew in the center of the tower. Several branches of the big tree spread out and wrapped around the waists of Yi Chen, Emilienne, and the others. With just a light lift, the 5 of them were lifted up at the same time, and their feet left the shackles of the soil. Heh, taste my stone rain. A childish voice suddenly came out from the corner. All of a sudden, everyone felt a dark cloud pressing down on them. When they looked up, they saw a round of boulders being released like a violent storm. Emilienne, He Chen, the Luo brothers, and Wu Jidao all released their own defensive enchantments at the same time to block this stone rain. Wu Jidao used his holy power to protect his body, and he couldn't help but curse, Holy F***CK, where did this perverted brat come from? What kind of hero is he to hide his head and show his tail? Come out if you have the guts. Flaunting your seniority, go die. The childish voice suddenly sounded in Wu Jidao's ears. Wu Jidao only felt that the stone rain above his head was becoming denser and denser. Chapter 1648. In this round of attacks, the defensive barrier was clearly weakened by several points, causing his expression to change slightly. Break! After a child's voice, the dense stone rain fell on Dao Wuji one after another. Dao Wuji was caught off guard and took the full brunt of the stone rain. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and the defensive barrier on his body was suddenly torn apart by the power of the little Tai Sui. His entire body was like a sparrow hawk that had its string cut. He was swept away by a surge of power and fell heavily to the ground. F.C.K. The unlucky Dao Wuji spat out another mouthful of blood, and his aura suddenly withered. One had to know that this old guy was also a very unlucky person. He had been locked in this tower of punishment for at least 10 years. Ever since he reached the 13th floor, he was detained by the peony fairy, so he never knew that the little Tai Sui on the 14th floor was actually such a terrifying figure. Cough cough cough. Dao Wuji was also a tough guy. Although he was beaten to the ground, his spirit did not collapse. Raising a thumb, Dao Wuji gestured toward an unknown corner. The guardian of the 14th floor is really powerful. This old man is convinced. If you're convinced, then get the hell out of here immediately. The child's voice carried a trace of incongruous coldness. And you two traitors, leave your lives here today. The rain of stones accumulated power in the air for a moment, then suddenly turned around and headed straight for the Luo brothers' heads. You're courting death. Emolienne sneered and waved her hand, and an ink-colored lotus flower floated out with a snap of her fingers. It crashed into the stone rain, causing a violent tremor. Emolienne pulled out the Raven Moon sword with her left hand, and a few sword shadows appeared in the air, directly tearing apart the stone rain above her head, and wantonly rampaging through it. Shurchen looked up, and his eyes couldn't help but darken a little. Yet she saw Crown Prince Emo draw the word, death, in the rain of stones like a swimming dragon with his sword. The sword chi surged, expanded, and suddenly exploded again. The force of the shock wave once again threw the passer-by Dao Wuji, who was lying on the ground to watch the show. He rolled to the corner of the wall, and this time he really couldn't get up. Innocent. Dao Wuji wanted to cry tears of sympathy for himself. Every time the Almighty fought, the one who suffered was always a small fry like him. The stone rain dispersed, and the child's voice was silent for a while. Suddenly he said coldly, "Boy, you're quite powerful. However, if you want to break through this level of mine, just this bit of ability is far from enough." The child's voice became cold again. As the voice fell, a small figure drilled out from the wall. A pair of cold silver eyes looked indifferently at the people on the floor, as if staring at a few dead people. "I am your little Tai Sui." Shurchen was speechless. The child's lips were red and his teeth were white. He looked like a golden child. Perhaps it was because he had been locked in the pagoda for a long time, but his complexion was extremely pale and abnormal. The heavenly Tao is too shameless. It actually caught a child to be the guardian of the tower. Was there any justice in this world? What did this child do to him? The heavenly Tao was actually such a heavenly Tao. Sigh, what a disappointment. Little fellow, how many years have you been guarding the 14th floor by yourself? Why don't we go out together? Chapter 1649. Nonsense! The childlike voice rebuked angrily. Little Tai Sui's expression was cold, and his eyes were as cold as ice. He stared deeply at Ma Shurchen. "Do you know how old I am? How dare you call me a little guy? Do you want to die? How old are you?" Ma Shurchen asked curiously. "By the way, do you know where the guardian of the 14th level, Dun Zhan, went?" "Oh, you're the boyfriend that Dun Zhan was willing to betray the heavenly Tao to protect, Ma Shurchen." "Master Ma Shurchen, that's strange. Why does it feel like something's not right? Do you want to know where he is?" Little Tai Sui suddenly smiled at Ma Shurchen. However, it was better not to smile like that. That fake smile that tugged at the corners of his mouth really made people shudder. Little Tai Sui suddenly flipped his hand, and a transparent earth-type cage appeared in his palm. Upon closer inspection, one could see a small, transparent figure inside the cage. It was like a little sparrow, and it was gripping the earthen pillar of the cage tightly as it cried out to Ma Shurchen with tears in its eyes, "Ma Shurchen, Marschurchen, save me, save me. Marschurchen's lips twitched involuntarily. Dungeon, how are you? Little Tai Sui destroyed my physical body, and he didn't even spare my divine sense. Wah! He said he was going to lock me up for 1,000 years. You're even going to make me sob sob sob. I can't even die. Wah! My dignity, my honor, everything that I had in the past has vanished along with the destruction of my physical body. The transparent figure in the earthen prison waved its arms and pounded its chest as it wailed and wailed. Emo Lien's face was expressionless. However, Marschurchen couldn't bear to look at it. When were you locked up? 2 years ago. The figure waved its arms and legs. Marschurchen, Marschurchen, you have to save me. You don't know how malicious little Tai Sui is. This earthen prison is far from as peaceful as it appears to be. This earthen prison will launch an attack on my divine sense every other day. It's so scary, so scary, so scary. Let me out. I don't want to stay in this dark room anymore. Little Tai Sui didn't wait for Dun Zong to finish complaining. He directly stuffed the dungeon into his sleeve. With a hint of coldness in his silver eyes, he indifferently stared at Shichen in front of him. You want to save him? Use your own life in exchange for it. Shichen shook his head like a rattle drum and said firmly, No. Little Tai Sui's expression immediately became a little peculiar, and it looked at Marschurchen with disdain. Humans really are selfish things. Idiot, did you hear that? You have violated the heavenly Tao time and time again. The people released from the Tower of Punishment will not know how to be grateful. Little Tai Sui patted its left sleeve, as if it was reminding Dun Zong in the cage. Instantly, there was no sound. Little Tai Sui thought that he was very disappointed, and the corners of its mouth involuntarily curled up into a mocking smile. Shurchen, since you've returned, you can stay in the realm of punishment forever. Hee hee. Ma Shurchen hurled several hundred wooden spikes at Little Tai Sui. Instantly, the wooden spikes flew toward Little Tai Sui in unison, forming a semicircle in front of him, almost completely enveloping his small body. Light of a firefly. Little Tai Sui muttered in a cold voice. Little Tai Sui didn't move at all. With just a light stomp of his foot, the wooden spikes that had formed a semicircle in front of him were all reduced to dust. I'm not done yet. Chapter 1650. Emo Lien's eyes flickered, and she finally looked at the little Tai Sui with a serious expression. This kid looks pretty strong. I'll take you on. Prince Mo's figure flickered, and he was already in front of the little Tai Sui. A wisp of black flames suddenly slid past the little Tai Sui's eyes, and the little Tai Sui's usually indifferent face couldn't help but be stunned. His body reacted faster than his brain, and he dodged the black flames with a twist of his body. The little Tai Sui lowered his head and looked at the small, deep pit that had been blasted into the ground. His two delicate little eyebrows were knitted together. It's actually a holy flame. The little Tai Sui muttered to himself. He looked up with uncertainty and took a deep look at Emo Lien. Who are you? Prince Mo's lips curled into a mocking smile. You only have the right to ask me if you can beat me. Heh, how many years has it been since I've met such an arrogant brat? I'll meet you for a while. Before he could finish speaking, he saw that Crown Prince Emo had already moved, and clusters of black flames dashed toward him like shooting stars. The little Tai Sui couldn't help but frown slightly. It seemed that he had bitten off a tough bone today. On the other side, in the hinterland of an area like the Lava Mountain Range, Abba came back after a round of cleaning. Among the 100 or so foxes, he only picked up a dozen or so crystal cores. This was because not all beasts had crystal cores in their heads. After running back, Abba saw the little fatty lying flat on a rock. He couldn't help but find it a little funny. Hey, get up, drink some water, eat something, and rest. Motta was holding a water bag in her hand. She looked at the fatty with a smile. Fatty, didn't you bring a lot of water? Hurry up and take out a water bottle to drink. Look at your face. It's so red that it's a little abnormal. In the hinterland of the lava mountain range, in the scorching hot environment, it was as if a person had been thrown into a furnace and was constantly being roasted. If they couldn't replenish their water in time, the water in their body would be lost too quickly, and they definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. That won't do. The little fatty shook his head and licked his dry lips. Although I brought a lot of water with me this time, but look at this place, the environment is so bad. God knows how many more days we'll have to spend here. If we drink all the water on the first day, what are we going to do for the next few days? Mata nodded. Yo, I didn't expect a little fatty like you to have such a sense of crisis. That was indeed the case. Back then, when we were training here, the third day was the most difficult day. Mata looked as if he was reminiscing about the past and sighed. At that time, we were in a state of almost no water and food. I don't even know how we managed to survive the next few days. When the little fatty heard this, he quickly sat up and asked, Senior Brother Mata, what happened after that? How did you persevere? Mata shrugged and said with a smile, Yes, with willpower. Persevere with your own willpower. Sometimes, when we think we're reaching our limit, we can't help ourselves. Actually, we can still continue to persevere. Hearing this, Qi Xian scoffed. Oh. In a state of no water and no food, you can still persevere for 3 to 4 days? It was still okay if there was no food, but in such a scorching environment, without water, it was really not a place for people to stay. If they really reached the point of no water, in such a furnace-like mountain, the consumption of their body would be even greater. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.